A lot of you might be looking at French property prices and thinking you've found an El Dorado. All you need to do is come to France, buy an old house up cheap, do it up quick and sell it on at a profit. And then just start the whole process over again. You know what I mean, flipping properties. Well, in France though, let's just say there is no flipping way. Let me explain. To start with, when you are renovating a property anywhere, everyone expects a bit of hard work. You expect dust, you expect disruption, you expect a few surprises behind walls. What people don't expect is the added surprises that you get in France. Remember, here, most houses aren't lightweight wood constructions. They're heavy stone or block, usually old with thick walls. I don't mean 1970s old, I mean 100 years old, 150 years maybe, sometimes even 300 years. From the days when places were built to last. That immediately changes how everything works. You're not just removing stud walls, you're demolishing load-bearing masonry. You're not removing wood and plasterboard, you're hauling stone and rubble. You're not replacing a bit of timber framing either. You're dealing with beams the size of trees that have been standing longer than you care to think. Rebuilding a pinion wall is not a 2-day project. One day taking it down and one day putting it back up. Here it's more like a 2-week hard slog with proper machinery and workmen. And that assumes you've already found someone willing to do it. And that's the next point. In France, there isn't one general contractor who turns up and does everything from start to finish. In France, there are artisans, or craftsmen if you prefer. Plumbers, electricians, masons, carpenters, roofers, plasters, tilers, painters, etc, etc. Each trade is separate, each is qualified in their own domain, and each one is responsible only for their part of the work. So it also means you need to coordinate, and those timetables matter. Good artisans aren't just waiting around, they're booked up months in advance, sometimes even longer. Roofers especially, and structural carpenters as well as specialist masons. And if one is delayed, you lose the slots for the following artisan. So time can quickly be stretched, and your budget too. Because if the mason finishes late, the electrician can't start. If the electrician moves on, the plumber moves. If the plumber moves, the plasterer moves. And suddenly your 6-month flip becomes 9 months, 12 months, even more. And that's usually the first reality check. There's more. Eventually the work is finished, the house is looking good. The walls are straight, the kitchen is new. The shutters are painted and the stone walls are beautiful again. You step back and you think, right, time to sell. You contact an agent and he prices the house for you. It all looks good until he asks you for the assurance décennale and you look at him blankly. In France, any major renovation work comes with a 10-year guarantee for roof, structure, electrics, plumbing, etc. Anything that affects the building itself. This is the guarantee décennale, as they call it. If structural work is carried out, the artisan must be insured for 10 years, and if something fails within that period, there is a legal framework to deal with it. Now imagine you flipped a house, you sold it, you've moved on. 5 years down the road, a structural issue appears linked to the renovation work. That responsibility does not automatically disappear just because the house has changed hands. And it's another reason why flipping houses carries more risk here than most people expect. If you had checked things out properly, you would have sorted out the insurance before starting work, as it can't be done afterwards. But let's pretend you did. Now you've had an offer on the table and you're waiting for the final signing at the notary's office. A few days before completion, he sends you through an email with a lot of large figures on it. It's the capital gains you will be paying on the sale. In France, unless the property is your principal residence, any profit you think you've made is taxed. And at its maximum, that tax can reach 36.2%. That's not a small adjustment, that's more than a third of the profit lost. And that's before we even look at what counts towards reducing that tax. What really catches people out isn't just the rate, it's what doesn't count for tax reductions. If you did the work yourself, that doesn't count. If you bought materials yourself, that doesn't count. If a friend helped you out, that doesn't count either. Only invoices from French registered artisans are taken into account. So the profit margin you worked out at the start often looks very different by the end, because the tax calculation does not care how many weekends you worked. It does not care how many hours you put in. It does not care how much effort you went into sourcing cheaper materials. If there is no registered invoice, it does not exist for the tax purposes. And on a side note, be careful about employing people on the black. In France, you are responsible for undeclared workmen, so if you get caught, it can lead to fines and court cases. France takes declared work very seriously. There are insurance implications, there are liability implications, and there are resale implications. So cutting corners to protect your margin can actually put you at risk later. Now, some people try to work around this by living in the property and declaring it as their principal residence. That can work once, twice maybe, but repeat that pattern several times in a short period and you will attract the attention of the tax office. And they could end up fining you not just for that house, but the ones you did before too. But please remember, France is not anti-investment, but it is not designed around short-term speculation either. So, can it be done properly? Well, yes, but only if you accept that in France, this is treated as a professional activity. There is a specific framework for it. It's what the French call a marchand de biens, or literally translated, a property merchant. This is not a loophole, it's not a trick. It is a recognised professional status for buying property with the intention of reselling it. Admittedly, in France, a lot of the marchands de biens don't really do any work on houses. They just buy them cheap and sell them on. But that's their call, not ours. One of the advantages of this status is reduced notary's fees, on condition that you resell within 5 years. If you don't, you end up having to pay the difference. But in return, you operate as a business. You keep accounts. You declare your activity. You respect VAT rules where applicable. You structure your purchase correctly from the beginning. And you accept that you are no longer acting as a private homeowner, but as a professional trader. And when you operate like that, flipping a house in France is possible. Lots of people do it, and some people do it very well, but they are not doing it casually. They are not doing it between other projects. They are not relying on DIY margins. They are organised, structured, and professional. So if you're looking at France, thinking you will buy one cheap house, renovate it over the summer, and walk away with a massive profit, well, you might want to think again. Because in France, property tends to reward patience more than speed. Long-term ownership makes sense here. Quick turnovers rarely do. And certainly don't expect to make a massive killing on just one job. So, I hope this helps. If it did, please drop a like and subscribe for me. And if it really did help, you can buy me a coffee with the QR code above. Thanks for watching. I'm Dan Newton, the French estate agent. À bientôt.
Don't forget the hype!